Welcome to Session 8. Today we continue with Module 2, which covers the initiation phase of the project lifecycle. We have already had 3 sessions on the initiation phase. In Session 5, we looked at how projects are selected using financial, non-financial, and scoring methods. In Session 6, we discussed the project charter, which is the document that authorizes the project and gets everything going. We also discussed how stakeholders are identified and consulted in putting the project charter together. In Session 7, we discussed the roles and responsibilities of the project sponsor, project manager, who is like the conductor of an orchestra of the project team, the project management team, and the project support officer. Importantly, we saw that the project management level 4 qualification is preparing you to be a member of a project management team and to play the support role on a project. Today, we are going to revise the purpose of the project charter and the process of compiling or putting one together. We will also look at the information that gets included in each section of the document. The project charter lays out the initial requirements of the project. It should answer the following questions. What is the project going to do? What is the business case for doing it? Who wants it done? Where is the money coming from? Who is going to manage the work? And who is going to do the work? The project charter contains all the information listed above at a high level. The details are added during the plan and design phase of the project. The project charter prevents what we see happening in the cartoon, where a guy is asking for a budget and being given a budget for a project that nobody knows anything about. We use a project management approach to develop the charter. In this case, the input is the business case for the project that was put together by the project sponsor. The tools, techniques we use are input from stakeholders and experts in the field, which we get during brainstorming sessions with stakeholders and experts, or focus groups, interviews, meetings, and templates for project charters. The output for the process is the project charter that formally authorizes the project and appoints the project manager. It is very important that stakeholders are identified and consulted in the process of developing the project charter. The needs and expectations of the stakeholders must be clearly understood so that the project objectives and deliverables can be defined correctly. We do not want what happened in the cartoon below to happen on our project. Compare what the customer needed to what was delivered. There are many different templates for project charters available on the internet. We are going to use a simple template. You will find it in the handout for this session. Have a look at it now, please. The template has 2 options, full and light, which is an even simpler template. We are now going to look at the sections of a project. The first section includes a high-level overview of the project. It explains what the project is all about and discusses the business case for the project. The next section is very important because it covers the scope of the project. Scope refers to the extent, range, or span of the project in the charter. We give a high-level description of the scope, and the details are included in the project management plan, which is developed in the next phase of the project. The scope of a project must be very carefully monitored and controlled so that it does not change and grow. This is known as scope creep, and it is one of the biggest causes of project failure. Compare the estimates to the actual in the cartoon. See how the blocks increased in number. That is a scope creep, and it costs money and takes time. The objectives of the project are included in the next section. They must be written in SMART format. S stands for specific. Specific means that the objective is detailed, focused, and well-defined. M stands for measurable. The objective is measurable, and it means that the progress can be monitored and measured, and we can track the results of our actions as we progress towards achieving the objective. The A stands for achievable. Objectives need to be achievable. If it is impossible to achieve the objective, the project will demotivate the project team. So objectives must be achievable to keep everyone motivated. The R stands for realistic. Realistic means that you have the resources necessary to get a job done. The T stands for time-bound. Time-bound means having a clear time frame and a clear deadlines for the achievement of the objective. Deadlines create a sense of urgency. An example of a SMART objective would be to build a dam with a capacity of 200,000 liters in Rats Central by 31 December 2020. Next comes the description of deliverables of a project. A deliverable in project management is the product that will be delivered at the end of the project. The deliverable can be massive, such as a stadium, a factory, or it can also be tiny, such as one-page marketing document. Next, we list the inclusions and exclusions for the project. In other words, we set the boundaries for the project. For example, if we are working on a project to build houses, we may exclude plastering and painting the houses. That concludes the section on scope. Can you see how the scope of the project describes what the project is and sets the boundaries of what the project includes and excludes? The next section of the charter describes the project assumptions, constraints, and risks. We will cover this in detail in later session, but need to get an understanding of what these terms mean now. Assumptions are things we accept as true or that we are certain will happen without having proof that they will. In project management, we make assumptions during the planning process that may turn out to be true or false. The assumptions are listed in the charter so that all the stakeholders know that the plans may need to change if the assumptions turn out to be false. For example, you may have assumed that a particular piece of equipment will be made available to you when you need it on the project. However, when the time comes, the equipment is not available. What will this mean to the project? It may result in delays or extra costs if the equipment has to be purchased. Next, we describe the project constraints. A constraint is a limitation or restriction that limits what you can achieve, how and when you can achieve it, and how much achieving it can cost on the project. Constraints can be internal or external and affect the performance of the project. The three primary constraints that project managers should be familiar with are time, scope, and cost, which are frequently known as the triple constraints or the project management triangle. The time constraint refers to the project's schedule for completion, including the deadlines for each phase of the project, as well as the date for the rollout of the final deliverable. The scope of the project defines its specific objective deliverables, features, and functions, in addition to the tasks required to complete the project. The cost of the project, often called the project's budget, comprises all of the financial resources needed to complete the project on time in its predetermined scope. Cost, for example, includes money for material, labor, vendors, and quality control. Each constraint is connected to the other two. So, for example, in increasing the scope of the project will likely require more time and money, while speeding up the timeline for the project may cut costs but also diminish the scope. Constraints are listed in the project charter so that all the stakeholders are aware of these limitations and restrictions. Next, we describe the risks for the project. A risk is something that may happen every time we go for a swim in the sea in an area that is not protected by shark nets. We take the risk of being attacked by a shark. Usually this does not happen, but think about the disastrous consequences if it does. Project risk is defined by the Project Management Institute as an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on a project's objectives. In the project charter, we describe what risks might arise in the project, note their likelihood, high, medium, low, the impact, again, high, medium, or low, and what we will do if it does happen. We will spend a whole session on risk identification and management. The next section of the charter deals with duration and project timelines and milestones. Duration is the total time that it takes to complete a project measured in work days, hours, or weeks. The duration depends on the availability and capacity of resources. Let's look at an example. Let's say you have estimated that it will take around 30 active work hours to build a fence. That does not mean that the fence is ready in 30 hours, unless you are planning on building the fence for 30 hours non-stop. If you dedicate 3 hours a day to work on the fence, then the duration of the project will be 10 days, 30 hours divided by 3 hours. But if you have a friend helping you out with the fence every day, then you would have 2 resources working 3 hours a day on the fence, equal 6 hours a day. The duration of the project is now 5 days, 30 hours total effort divided by 6 hours a day. The duration of the project given in the project charter is an estimate. The details are calculated in the planning phase of the project. The project timeline is a line that shows the chronological sequence of the events of the project. Milestones are major points in a project when a phase is completed. Milestones are marked on the timeline and are used for monitoring progress on the project. The next section of the project charter is the budget estimates. Again, we will have a session on budgets, so we'll not spend time on this now. The final section of the charter covers the stakeholders, their roles and responsibilities on the project, and the way the project team will be organized in a functional, matrix, or project structure. We have already covered this in session 7. Importantly, this final section of the charter appoints the project manager for the project. So once the charter has been signed by the stakeholders, the project manager can start planning and executing the project. If you go back to the project charter template, you will see that we have now covered all the sections. In the next session, we will move on to the plan and design phase of the project. In the meantime, though, you've got some assessment tasks to do on the project charter for the wedding project we have been working on. For now, we would like to leave you with the following thought. Setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. That is definitely true for projects. What about you? Have you set goals for yourself yet? Have a really great week ahead. We'll chat again soon. Don't forget to complete your assessment tasks.